With the start of training camp coming in just a couple of days, we're going to talk about why the trade rumors around the Chicago Bulls are going to start dying down. The Chicago Bulls have now officially announced the player development staff, the whole team there. We're going to talk a little bit about that and dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And so the Bulls have been recently in a lot of trade rumors, really just kind of surrounding the Dame Lillard trade, whether it be for Tyler Hero, them trying to pursue for Dame Lillard. But, now that training camp is really just 2 days away, which is crazy to say, is that training camp is 2 days away. And then just a few days after that, we will officially be getting Chicago Bulls basketball next Sunday. So this is crazy, just crazy, right? This is exciting times for Bulls fans and, just to have basketball back. I know a lot of us are looking forward to it. But with that said, I think that the trade rumors around the Chicago Bulls are going to start kind of dying off, right? And we're going to see more of a focus on, building the chemistry and kind of focusing on what this roster is. That does not mean that they can't pick back up. Now, that one caveat to that is if the Bulls do decide to make a trade for Drew Holiday, that's probably the only kind of trade talks they're probably going to be in right now. But ultimately, I do think that, especially the ones surrounding Zach LaVine, things like that, is that we're going to see now a shift from those trade rumors, which I do think a lot of those were kind of just writers looking for things to kind of connect pieces and things like that. Listen, now with the start of the season being here, that part of it's gonna die down, right? You can still have some rumblings of that, of course, from certain people and things like that. But ultimately, the focus with the Chicago Bulls team is now shifting to season mode. And what that means is chemistry. That means building. That means setting up your schemes and things like that. And so, hopefully this team is coming into that training camp experience, especially with them having it down in Nashville, and more so focusing on building that team chemistry, that camaraderie that this team had, especially, when you get the quote from Eversley saying that, some of the players said that they didn't feel like a team, right? So those are kind of things that you have to look at and look into as well when it comes down to it. And so, yeah, all the trade rumors, fun. It's good to cover, things like that. We have quite a few voicemails as well, still on kind of trade things, which I always expect that from fans. Fans are always looking at who's the next person that we can get, but now it's shifting to season mode, and that means shifting the channel back to season mode as well, right? And you guys know how we get busy around here at Chicago Bulls Central once the season is on. So if you're on the podcast side, over on the YouTube side, we host the pregame shows, right? The halftime hangouts, the live post-game shows, which I do eventually post those as podcasts for the podcast listeners. But hey, make sure you guys are tuned in for my members as well on the channel. You're going back to getting your once-a-week members-only videos during the season, right? I kind of died off that a little bit during the off season because it just wasn't a lot of news. So you're going to start seeing and getting things like that again. So we are switching back to season mode. And, it's going to be fun times around here with Chicago Bears Central. We're going to up some of the production value and quality on things as well. So you're going to see little changes, overlays, things like that we're going to be bringing to the channel also. But overall, just when it comes down to it, make sure you guys stay tuned in to the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, because now that we're switching to season mode, it's going to be fun times. But talk about switching to season mode. The Chicago Bulls have announced their full player development staff. And this, is a big deal. For one, is that a year ago, the Bulls didn't even have a shooting coach, much less a player development team at all. So within a year, right? Within a year, the Chicago Bulls have went from having not a shooting coach, right, to hiring not only a shooting coach, but a whole team of people focused on player development. They've basically built a whole new wing of the team, right? And so it all started with bringing in Peter Patton, right, who was a former shooting coach. He's now he came in as the director of player development, and then we added 5 more hires to his staff and to his team. We had 2 staffers, and Austin Default, who is the extra player development guy I've been talking about for a while, which I couldn't remember his name. Austin Default and Peter Crawford are joining as player development coordinators, right? So that's 2 more to add to Peter Patton and what he's doing down there with that development team. Default is he's been with the Pistons for multiple years, and Crawford he actually worked with Patton over in the Dallas Mavericks. And then we also had two other roles that came in as coordinator of team operations and player development, and family engagement. And then we also hired a massage therapist. Their names weren't disclosed here, but we now have a full player development staff, right? And then I also think, the massage therapist part of it too. Hey, listen, sometimes you got to relax, right? You got to get a good massage in there. But I do think that now with having a whole team of people that are focused in different aspects of player development, especially the three coaches specifically, we're going to hopefully seeing these players, develop a little bit more, have more streamlined game plans. One thing that we've noticed from Billy Donovan, he is not the coach that is going to be giving players development minutes, right, or reps with shots just to do it. So the player development team is going to be hugely important. Now, temper those expectations, right? It's going to be a year or so or more before we really start seeing the effects of having a whole team and staff of people just focused on player development, but it is one that was needed for this Chicago Bulls team, especially considering how many young raw players we've drafted over the last couple of years. So, that's a good thing. AK, even had something to say about it. He says this: for day one, our focus has been on cultivating a growth-oriented program and supportive environment for players, coaches, and staff. By bringing in 3 experienced additions within player development, as well as increasing and elevating support staff, we are addressing our emphasis on organizational development to continue building a collaborative and winning atmosphere. That's what you need to do, right? The Bulls have not gotten the superstar players. Yes, we signed DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso and things like that, but ultimately what we've been talking about most of this summer is that for the Bulls to really raise that ceiling is going to have to come through player development, and player development has to be a focus of this team going forward. And now they've doubled down on that. And, this is what AK, when he came in, when he took over the Bulls, he said that we were going to build organically through the draft and build within. And then he kind of shifted from that. Now we're seeing him get back in line with what he initially said that was going to be the focus of him taking over the Chicago Bulls. And so, we'll see if that nets better results overall. I know a lot of fans are down on certain players that we have here that need to develop, but, hopefully this is a step in the right direction of starting to turn some of that stuff around for the organization. But it's Saturday, so know what that means. This episode is mainly built around your voicemails. We're going to get into the first one now. This one's from the 708.
What up, Hayes? I ain't called in a minute, but I just want to give my thoughts because I need something in Chicago to be positive right now, because we all know the Bears situation is horrible. But I think the problem in all the Chicago sports teams as to why we're doing bad, for the ones that's playing right now, except for the Cubs, is coaching, honestly. I think we have coaches in the city that don't care about the teams that they're coaching. And I think Billy is part of that. Why do I think Billy is part of that? Because he refuses to adjust the game plan to his players, much like how Luke Getsy refuses to adjust the game plan to his players. We have one of the best inside-out men in the entire league in Luke. We just seen him playing Montenegro and put up numbers efficiently at that. Efficiently. I think he went 10 for 15 with 2 blocks, a couple threes. Come on, bro. We can get Vooch out of that. The man's 33. And I love DeMar, but he's probably our most tradable piece, in all honesty, in my eyes. Because you can't replace Vooch. Zach is too young. T. Will is younger than Zach. He could have more potential. Who else in the starting lineup? It'd probably be Javon Carter. If it's him, then that's good. We got a good point of attack defender. But the system that Billy has, it would have only worked with Zoe. And because Zoe he's gone, bro. He's gone. Because Zoe is gone, it's wrapped. We don't have anybody. So we need to trade somebody, bro. We need somebody else here. Get rid of the coaches, bro. I think it's more of a Chicago problem with the coaching, but this is the Bulls. So I'm going to just point out Billy's flaws. He does have some good strengths about him, but I think he should be like a defensive coordinator. You know what I'm saying? We need more emphasis on the coordinators in basketball, like how we do for football. Anyway, be ready, y'all.
Coaches in Chicago, listen, we've talked, me, Steve-O, Bobby, C-Dub, Kev, we talk about this all the time. Right now we are suffering from bad coaches overall in Chicago, or just ones with hugely glaring flaws. Because even when I said Billy Donovan isn't a bad coach, that doesn't mean he's the right coach for this team. That's always what I say. And he definitely has his limitations, and one of those, to the point of what you said, not building the game plan around his players, right? And so that is something that we see great coaches do, is able to adapt the system, right, to the skill set that they have, rather than try to force players into specific roles that were already predetermined by their system. So, And this is why, if you hire a system coach of getting the right players to fit that system or hiring the right coach that has the system that already fits your players. But the Bulls got Billy Donovan. Seems like Billy Donovan's going to be here for a while. I know some people are kind of speculating, is Billy Donovan going to be on the hot seat, things like that. I don't necessarily see that, but hey, I would love to be wrong on it. But at the end of the day, that's what we do need to see from Billy Donovan. Use your coach, use your players better, right? Use Vooch better to his skill set, right? Use Zach LaVine more in catch and shoot opportunities. Allow players like Ayo Dosunmu to get out in transition, get downhill. Alex Caruso, right? Andre Drummond, keep them in games, right, when they're cooking. These are things that we shouldn't have to ask from a coach at this level, at this point, with having 3 years of continuity with the team. But it is. This is where we are realistically, and hopefully training camp or whatever else, the continuity, whatever we're going to point to, gets us and keeps us at that point. Now, as far as DeMar being the most tradable asset for the Chicago Bulls, my mindset I've been very clear on with this. I think when a player is expiring and at the age of DeMar, you explore the trade value. You just have to, right? And that's what I hope that they're listening to, but that doesn't mean just trade DeMar just to trade him, right? And I think with this team, ultimately, the improvement is more so going to come internally. That's where it has to come from. If the Bulls get lucky and able to sign or go after whatever else it is, cool. But I think right now it has to come through development. You have to see some of these young players be ready to step up into their roles and things like that. But as far as DeMar being the most tradable asset, I don't know. I think, probably Zach is probably still a more tradable because he is younger and does have longer on his contract, right? So that may be a more enticing piece to other teams. But at the end of the day, I really don't expect this team to do much in the trade market, right? Maybe if it comes down to absorbing somebody with their disabled player exception, maybe something like that. But overall, I really don't think this is going to be a hugely active season for the Bulls, and mainly because I hope that they're playing much better to the point where you're not looking at just jettisoning off a bunch of pieces. But if this team is still struggling and below 500 by the All-Star break, you never know what may be the case at that point in time. So I guess we'll review it then. But all right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I was just scrolling through YouTube at work when I saw the little bid where Dame went to Milwaukee. I'm like, it's just it got to be fake. I don't believe that because I didn't even hear anything about Milwaukee. Then I clicked on it and I started looking like, damn, how the hell did Dame go to Milwaukee? They weren't even mentioned. It just feels like if you a sports fan of any team with Chicago, God personally hates you. And he's just literally punishing Chicago for some unknown reason. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about the Bears or the White Sox. It's like what do we fans do to make God mad at us? Game to Milwaukee, so we got to see him 4 times a year minimum, man. But you know what? It is, man. Yeah, people had it right. Just say shit. That's all you can say. But if the Blazers are dumb enough to trade Drew Holiday, hey, hopefully Chicago can get in on that because Drew Holiday in the Bulls uniform is nothing to be mad at. But hey, thanks for listening to me, Zach. See ya.
Dame to Milwaukee. I guess we've had a couple of days to kind of now let that sit in, right? And I think, it was kind of surprising and shocking. And I know, you kind of more so say the Bulls fans should be upset about it. The Bulls never were really in those talks, right? And that's kind of what I said at that time when, the rumors came up. I didn't believe it at all that the Bulls are going to make a move of that magnitude. But when it comes down to it, it's just this, right? The Dame to Milwaukee thing just shows why it's important to build a foundation because while Dame didn't originally want to go to Milwaukee, Dame just wants to win a title. And the Miami Heat were the team that, they had a clear need for him. He could pair with somebody who was a hard worker in Jimmy Butler. So it made sense why Dame was focused on Miami. But the fact of the matter is the Milwaukee Bucks are a championship contending team. And Dame is going to be happy as long as he's competing for something that is meaningful, right? That's no longer just scraping by. Like that team has championship aspirations, not just aspirations to make the damn playoffs. And that was what shows in this is why you need to build a super strong foundation for your team. And then if you need to pivot, you can do it, right? If you need to pivot, you can do it. Dame didn't want to originally go to Milwaukee, but I guarantee you we're not going to hear anything about trade requests coming from Milwaukee as long as Giannis is still there. He's still healthy, and that team is still competing. Dame is going to give it his all, and I think he was going to give it his all regardless, right? And so I think that's the kind of the story that needs to be taken away from it. You have to build a solid foundation. This going into a rebuild every 2 or 3 years, which some fans would have us do, isn't going to lead to what they think it's going to lead to. You have to build a solid foundation first. Now they had an amazing a foundational piece in Giannis Antetokounmpo, which the Bulls don't have, right? But that is also the importance of drafting within, right? Internally, developing your own players, right? That is why those things matter. And so, shout out to Dame, shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks for, for combining now and now having those type of expectations around them. And we'll see how it goes this season for them. We'll see how it goes. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Big Rob.
Hey, how you doing? It's Big Rob from the West Side. Many blessings to you. I was calling because obviously you've heard with Dame being traded to Milwaukee and pretty much making them the favorite. And Portland now immediately trying to trade Drew Holiday to any team at this point because they want to stay young. Would you consider the Bulls going after him? And if so, in your opinion, can you use the trade exception that you use for the disability on Lonzo? And I just wanted to know if that's even possible because I don't know how the structure of everything is for the money aspect. That's why I'm asking you. And if so, could a package like the Cap giving back their draft pick, maybe throwing in a Dalen Terry and a couple of younger prospects on there, or even some draft picks? I just want to know your opinion. Is that even feasible to acquire Drew? If not, or just stay pat? Pretty much, this is going to be a fun season. So, looking forward to your opinion. Thank you so much. God bless.
Trading for Drew. Here's what I'll say. No, the disabled player exception cannot be used to trade for Drew because his contract is higher. You can't combine the DPE with any other player to get to Drew Holiday's contract, so that you can't combine the DPE and Lonzo Ball, and then that gets you Drew Holiday. You can't do that. So it can't be used in that way, right? And it can also only be used to trade for a player that's in the last year of their deal, which Drew Holiday technically isn't because he has a player option. So that doesn't buy into that either. So it's just not something that we can use in that case. Now, here's what I'll say. If the Bulls want Drew Holiday, they can put a package together. The biggest question is with the package that they can put together now, is that enough to entice the Portland Trailblazers to send Drew to them? Or is there going to be other teams with better packages to offer? And I think that that's going to be the case in a situation like this. And it is what it is. Would Drew be a perfect fit for the Chicago Bulls? Absolutely. Absolutely. But keep in mind, he potentially becomes a free agent the same year that Lonzo Ball's contract comes off the books. The Bulls could look to do something then with Drew Holiday, right? You just never know. But, Drew, I don't think is going to come to the Chicago Bulls in the trade. It's unfortunate because he would be so perfect. But, hey, we got this team, and let's see what this team brings about, improvement in the margins, things like that, and we'll see what this team ultimately ends up being. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Hayes? Big O, man. I had to call in, man. I want to chime in about the Dame trade, man. I like Dame, man. I'm a huge Dame fan, man. I got a lot of respect for the guy on and off the court, man. But I got to tell you, I don't love this trade for the Milwaukee Bucks. I love it for Portland. I think I ain't gonna say I love it for Phoenix, but I thought it was a hell of a good deal because they got some depth out of that with a starting center in Nurkic as long as he can stay healthy. But just focusing on Milwaukee for a second, you gave up a two-way throwing guard in Drew Holiday. Now, we all probably agree that Dame is the better player, but I don't think he leaps and bounds better than Drew. For the simple fact, what Drew does for you, Dame can't do when it comes to guarding the Jaylen Brown, the Jason Tatum's at times, the Jimmy Butler. I know he got smoked in the playoffs, but just for the conversation and over the history, he's guarding the perimeter players and forwards at times, and he's doing it at an elite level. Now, they ain't going to be able to give you all the scoring you can handle, at least as much as we expect, at least as much as we expect, from Damian Lillard. But I don't know. They got to do something else. It has to be more moves because that backcourt gonna get smoked every night. Pat Connaughton, he's a decent defender. He's not great. We know Dame ain't a great defender, right? And Malik Beasley, I think I can give Malik Beasley 15, 20 points. I ain't gonna lie to you. You know what I mean? That backcourt is gonna get smoked. Now we know they got rim protection, okay, but who gonna guard the Jaylen Browns of the world? Even Zach and DeMar. Remember when Drew Holiday was just posting Io and Zach LaVine and posting everybody up and just demolishing them in the paint. That's not a problem for the Bulls anymore. Because Dame can't guard Zach. DeMar gonna pick on them. Patrick Williams, you know what I mean? So I think they're vulnerable more now. Now, regular season, they're gonna win 50-plus games. Giannis and Dame, they're gonna do that. But playoff time, as is, I don't love it for them. I don't think they're as a clear favorite as people think. I think Boston's still a favorite in the East. That's just my opinion.
All right, so Big O kind of doubtful of Milwaukee, and I've seen this a lot, right? So that's completely fair, and I understand it, but I look at it this way. Dame Lillard is a better player than Jrue Holiday, and his ability to break up what's now called the Giannis wall is, I think, more valuable to that team, right, than what probably Jrue Holiday brought as a two-way player. We saw it get exposed, right? And I think that team looked at it and said, we can probably go out and find other guards. We can't go out and find somebody who can break up the Giannis wall like a Dame Lillard. So I agree with you. They're probably going to need to add something else. They'll probably be monitoring the buyout market, things like that. Now, they still have tons of rim protection, right? They still have Bobby Portis. They still have Brook Lopez down there. So they still have players down there that they can kind of funnel in that defense, right? It may change their defensive scheme and system a little bit, but they still have some. Now, the perimeter defense, that could be a question for them, right? And that could be one of their weak spots. And that's where, no matter what super team forms, there are always weaknesses on those teams. You just have to be smart enough and have the right personnel to take advantage of that, right? And so, yeah, they're going to be a limited on the perimeter defensive team, but keep in mind what they have down low defensively. I think also, especially if Jay Crowder can stay healthy, which is a big question down there as well. If he can stay healthy, it's going to be something where I think they may have enough defense to really take that step up. So, we'll end up seeing. The biggest thing is that I think they wanted to add another star to Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? To keep him there, to get him extended, right? And then you can go out and find defenders, right? That's the thing is, and if I was a GM, I would more so bet on being able to find defenders than finding a player that is perfect suited to break up something that we ran into in the Giannis wall last season that exposed us. So they've now completely changed that dynamic, and we got to see if it's going to pay off for them in the long run. But they've at least gone into that direction to change that dynamic to where one of the things that were starting to become a glaring weakness for them in a way that you can defend them, we'll see. So I think that dynamic is going to be the biggest thing. And as we've seen with some teams as well, if you can just outscore enough people, hey, your defense and have solid enough defense, right? If you can get enough defensive stops when you really need them, which they can, especially with Giannis and what he can do defensively, I think they can. I think that's why they feel pretty safe in that. I think the Bucks are going to be a better overall team, even though they now have a bigger glaring weakness that more teams can exploit. It's just you still got to try to outscore them, which is still going to be a big problem, especially if also Chris Middleton can stay healthy as well. But all right, let's get into the last voicemail for the day. This one's from the 312.
Hey, what's the word, Brody? I'm sitting here thinking, man. Well, for one, I think it's kind of cool. I know a lot of people's kind of in shambles or questioning why they're going down to Nashville and all that stuff. But then now it makes sense with AK and Mark coming out and saying, well, the team said they didn't really feel like a team, quote unquote. I mean, like you said, we understood what they were saying without hearing it. So I guess they taking it as, come on, let's go actually build some camaraderie. Let's go actually build like that brotherhood. Let's go somewhere where ain't no distractions. We can go down here and just hoop. You can go down here and have conversations to kick it. And I kind of got put in that mind frame with my church team. Like, we ended up winning the championship one year literally because we came off of a men's retreat. Went to a men's retreat for the weekend, got a chance to talk, kick it, chop it up and all that stuff. And that whole year, we didn't lose not one game. Like, so I could kind of see where they're going from that just from my experience. And then, two, I'm sitting here thinking, I would love Jrue Holiday. I would. But for what it's going to take to give up and the money that we have to make just to get it, I'd rather hold out on DeJounte Murray. I know a lot of people ain't really talking about DeJounte no more because he's down there in Atlanta, ain't really getting the exposure like he should. But can't forget, him and Zach is homies. He kind of working that same time frame as Kobe and Pat Will if they stick around and Ayo. I know DeMar and Boots will be a little older, but I think DeMar will take a pay cut at that point because, like I said, I think that the team going to actually do good this year, so it's going to make him say, all right, well, I'll at least stick around just to help us keep winning. And like you said, with a DeJounte and a Zach LaVine by themselves, I think that'll be phenomenal. Especially, I really truly think that Pat is going to make a better step today. I know that, you kind of down on, with Pat, the designer being kind of down on Pat, I'm kind of the same idea as you. Like, he actually might hoop this year. I can't even stunt. But let's at least see what happens.
Training camp in Nashville. I agree with you. I think that, getting away, right? And I kind of said that then, and that was before we even knew of this thing of the team not feeling like a team. But being able to get away, remove distractions, bond together as a team, being in a isolated place, right? Not that Nashville is actually a dope city. But be isolated away from like your fans, your family and stuff like that, and just focus on just building this team camaraderie is going to help so much with the Chicago Bulls team and building that identity that we are sorely missing and needing for this franchise. So I think that's why they looked at it. Now, as far as DeJounte, keep in mind, DeJounte Murray re-signed with the Atlanta Hawks on a long-term deal, so he's no longer going to be an unrestricted free agent when we initially expected. That doesn't mean that the Atlanta Hawks can't look to move him at some point. It's just that I don't necessarily expect that, right? So I think DeJounte's probably going to be in Atlanta for the foreseeable future. Would he have been perfect next to Zach LaVine? There's enough conversation to say that, right? But now that he won't be hitting the free agent market, I don't know if that's going to quite happen. I don't know. I would love to see DeJounte in the Chicago Bulls uniform. I think that would be the perfect pivot to come away from Lonzo Ball because, yeah, it doesn't seem like Lonzo's going to come back. Knock on wood. You never know, right? We're not doctors, so we'll end up seeing with that, man. But let me know your guys' thoughts on everything down below. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the channel at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.